A key theme as we enter the new year tends to be reflection, as we reflect on our routines, the way that we do things, and quite often also the items that we own. And I thought today we could talk about style and the different things that I have been kind of pondering that have brought up a lot of different questions that I wish I was asking myself when I made some very specific shopping regrets. And I am going to link my best and worst purchases of 2024 up in the cards if you'd like to go and have a watch after this video. So I've come up with a list of 9 questions to ask yourself when you're buying something new, which I hope will stop you from making any shopping regrets in 2025. And the very first one is, do I own something similar or something that serves the same purpose? And this isn't to say that we shouldn't have multiples. For example, the white tank that I'm wearing, I have a few white tanks, but I know that I lean on these quite heavily in the summertime, so it's a little bit of a wardrobe staple for me. But things that aren't so heavily worn, that aren't powerhouse items in my closet, I have to look at it and go, do I have something else that already serves this purpose, that has this function, this role in my wardrobe that I would use before the new item? Because if you could only have one, which one are you going to choose? And you have to hope the thing that you're bringing in is going to be just as good, if not better, than what you already are wearing and reaching for on repeat. The other side of this equation is it adding up to the same look? So are you creating something new, or are you working within the same formula? So we're looking for ingredients that will add a fresh perspective rather than ingredients that will equal the same recipe. Next question to ask yourself is it a trend or is it my style? I shared a style evolution video recently where I concluded that personal style and trends are interlinked. As much as we like to think we've got all of this control over our personal style, it does tend to be dictated by what is in fashion at the moment and actually what we also have access to. And being able to distinguish between the two will have so much value for your wardrobe. But not only that, I think it's a much better use of your resources, your time, your money, if you're buying things that you're going to be wearing for years and years. And this part of the video includes a paid integration with Linjer, who you'll know I love for their really timeless classic designs, high quality, and also really good price points. And I don't have anything new to share with you today because I wanted to highlight some of my favorite pieces that I've added to my jewelry collection from Linjer over the years, as I think this really kind of highlights this point about how when we buy things that are our style, they endure and they're everlasting. They're things that we'll continue to wear and reach for on repeat. And I of course have to mention the Mathilde earrings, which I currently have on right now. It's this beautiful Baroque pearl, which reflects the organic shape of the rest of the earring. I know many of you have gone on to buy these too and absolutely love them. And I think I've been wearing these for maybe close to 3 years now. They're something that just never go out of style in my opinion. Also, these beautiful lab-grown diamond studs. These are the Aria studs, and I do not take these out of my ears. They stay in there. I just think it's a very classic, timeless little way to add a bit of sparkle. If you don't already know this, all of Linjer's diamond pieces are made using lab-grown diamonds, which are chemically, physically, and also visually exactly the same as a mined diamond, except they're absolutely conflict free, and I love that. I think it's also worth highlighting the fact that Linjer does use recycled silver and recycled gold in all of their jewelry pieces, so you have this sense of renewal, which I think is really beautiful, that idea of turning something old into something new. The twist huggies are also a great option if you prefer a hoop over a little stud as your second piercing. I'd say probably my favorite newer piece from Linjer, which I got in the last year, is the petal chain necklace. This is in the 14 karat gold. And the great thing about 14 karat gold pieces is that they're going to endure and last forever. You're going to have these as basically heirloom pieces you can eventually pass on to your children or your grandchildren, which again I think is a really special way to enjoy and add jewelry into your collection. And I know many of my styling clients actually refer to how they love wearing those heirloom pieces that they've received from a loved one because it adds this real personal touch to their outfit. I was having a little browse through their new arrivals though because I couldn't help myself, and I thought I'd just highlight a handful of my favorites. Okay, so I adore the graduated diamond ring. This comes in a white gold and also in a yellow gold. I think this would just add the most beautiful amount of sparkle to your fingers. I also spotted from a ring perspective the oval morganite and diamond ring. This is a Demetria ring, and actually my mum's name was Dimitra, so it's kind of like when I see her name in anything, I'm always very drawn to it. But I love morganite as a stone, as I think it is so pretty with that kind of coral color to it. And I like the way that the diamonds have been spaced out to the side. My final pick would have to be the Baroque Pearl Chunky Hoop earrings. These do come in silver and also in a gold vermeil. I think I'd be tempted by the silver ones, but these look like they've got such a nice bit of heft to them, but then also have that lovely organic shape too. Linjer are currently running their Valentine's Day sale, and if you want to get a little bit of an extra saving off your order, you can use my code Mademoiselle Gem for a little bit of a top up at checkout. I will have all those details down below, along with links to all of the pieces that I featured, but I think a really lovely gift for yourself or a loved one if you are just looking to invest in some really beautiful high quality pieces of jewelry. You really can't go wrong. Next question to ask yourself is, does the quality match up with how you foresee yourself wearing it? And this really is a question about durability, and I do feel like it's important to point out that durability is not necessarily linked to the quality of an item, though I think when we're speaking quite broadly online, this is generally what we are referring to. But you can have an incredibly high quality silk piece and it's very, very delicate, prone to ripping and tearing, so it's not very durable, but it doesn't mean that it is not special, that it is not the epitome of luxury. So I guess what's important to really factor into your shopping decisions is, does the fabric match the way that I intend to wear this item? So if you're thinking about your trousers, is it going to be a really nice, thick, hard-wearing fabric that isn't going to wear out on the knees? Think about denim. If you wear the same pair of jeans for 3 years, you are going to end up getting some fraying at the knees, especially if you're bending down a lot. You're probably also going to get some major whiskering on the hip area where you sit and also on the bum. So think about high friction points and how that fabric may wear and tear over time, and whether the fabric is actually going to be able to withstand that wear. So for example, if you are looking at something that is more of a delicate fabric, you're probably going to be wanting to buy that for more of an occasional piece, or an item that you know that you're going to be wearing in a more precious way. So you're going to be a lot more careful and really cognizant of how you're carrying yourself when you have that item on. Do I know how to care for it? I've mentioned this one a lot in the past, but if you don't know how to care for an item, then it's going to become a very costly purchase, especially if you go to launder it and then you make an absolute mess of it. So an example would be types of wool that do have a tendency to felt. These need to be dry cleaned, because if you do wash them, when the fibers get aggravated, they're going to tighten and you're going to end up with a sweater that is many sizes too small. And I think that nobody really wants to make their sweater shrink in size. They want it to stay the way it was when they bought it. So having that understanding, even fabrics like viscose, for example, I know that I will never buy viscose because when you do wash it, it is going to shrink unless it has been pre-washed. So making sure you read the care label before you buy an item, and also just being confident in your ability to launder it, doing a little bit of research if you're not sure, making sure that you have the tools at home in order to upkeep, maintain the items you own. For example, again with knitwear, you probably want to have some sort of a wool comb so that you can get rid of any pilling that does happen over time with friction points on the knit. I have done a video all on the wardrobe essentials you actually need, so not clothing related. I'll pop that one up in the cards as well. Next question to ask is this a purchase for me or is it a purchase for my fantasy self? If you haven't heard of the concept of fantasy self, it's essentially the aspirational self, the life that we want to live. Maybe it's a life that we've left behind because we've moved, we've changed jobs, we've had a complete lifestyle shift. But that is the fantasy self, and sometimes it can be really difficult to distinguish between whether we're buying for the fantasy self or for our actual selves, for our actual lifestyle. And I think part of this also leans into that sense of enclothed cognition. When we put on clothing, it tends to make us feel and act and behave in a certain way. I'll put some more information about enclothed cognition down in the description box. I think it's very, very fascinating. It could be that you want to be this particular person in this item that you have on your wish list, and you can see yourself wearing it in this fantasy. And this is really one that does catch me out a lot, because I think we can make allowances for ourselves, we can make up scenarios, we can go, that'll be the one thing I reach for in that particular situation that maybe is infrequent in my life, but I do have cause for it. And I'd say my most recent purchase that really does reflect this is the Harris Tapper Eliza top, which I really love, but when I do have a special occasion, it's not the thing I'm reaching for. I'm reaching for something else, and it really does kind of fit into this aspirational sense of how I would love to dress, but I just know it's not practical for me. Bonded satin as a fabric is one that is very difficult to care for. I worry about getting stains on it. The list kind of goes on, and you can kind of see how a lot of those other points I've mentioned tie back to this very singular purchase. If you use a wardrobe cataloging app like Index, you can add the item into your wardrobe and you can begin to style it with the items that you're wearing on repeat, or for the actual scenarios that you have in your day-to-day life, to really assess, one, whether it actually works within your wardrobe, and two, if it is actually going to match up with your lifestyle and the way you kind of see yourself wearing it on a daily basis. Will I love it when it's worn in? I think this is a very important question to ask yourself, because if you are truly wearing your clothes, eventually it is going to look a little bit old. It's not going to look new and fresh anymore. And you have to be just as happy with how it's going to look when it's been worn 30, 40, 50, 100 times as you are when it is brand new, fresh off the shelf. And a really good example from my own recent experience is the Loewe puzzle bag. Now, I've wanted this bag, I've covered it for over 6 years, and it wasn't until recently that I really started to do a bit of digging to kind of uncover how a worn-in, a really well-loved Loewe puzzle bag looks. And what happened kind of shocked me, because I realized that as much as I love this bag new, I don't love it when it is totally worn in. And I'm going to put some photos on screen, but what I want out of that bag is to hero the shape, but also for it to still have structure to it. And you can see that the leather really softens and it tends to kind of lose its more angular shape because it has the seams on the sides. So instead, I ended up buying something that is very heavily inspired by the Loewe puzzle bag, but it has flat sides, which from my experience tells me it's going to hold its structure a lot better if I'm wearing it for the same period of time. So being really aware of that, I've had someone say my AD Mary Janes look really battered after owning them for a year, but personally, I'm quite happy with that. I'm really glad they look well loved, because they have been well loved. So I think that this is a really important one, and definitely something that we often overlook. Does the amount I'm spending on this item match up with how often I'll wear it? And what I mean by this is, it doesn't make any sense to spend a lot of your clothing budget on an item that you're rarely going to wear. It makes more sense to allocate a larger portion of your wardrobe budget to the things that you're going to wear on repeat, that are going to be tried and true staples over the course of the season. So an example from my own wardrobe is that I know I barely ever wear silk blouses, because there's the additional cost of having to dry clean them. They feel very high maintenance to me, so I'm not going to reach for them that frequently, and I don't want to allocate that much of my wardrobe budget to buying a silk blouse. However, I know that I do wear really nice chunky natural fiber knitwear in the winter time, so I feel very confident and feel very safe in spending and allocating a larger portion of my wardrobe budget to a really beautiful sweater, something that I'm going to get a lot of fulfillment and a lot of enjoyment wearing over the course of the season. The next question to ask yourself is, do I have to compromise to make this work? And I want to use another recent example from a shopping experience that I've had. I've been on the hunt for just a really nice, dainty, minimal strappy sandal for summer, because it's something I wear a lot. It's a high rotation piece for me, and I'm quite happy to spend a little bit more here. So I went out and I bought 2 options to see which ones I liked better from 2 quite lovely brands. When they arrived, I was so sad because I realized both pairs of shoes were too narrow for me. So if I wanted to keep these very beautiful shoes, I would have to compromise on the fit, on the fact that my foot would be hanging over the sides of the shoes. And I really didn't want to do that. At that price point, I don't think I should have to. I should be able to find nice sandals that have a wide enough sole that will accommodate my feet. I feel like that's not too much to ask, but there are so many other ways that this can translate when you're shopping for your wardrobe. For example, the bag that has a strap that is either too long or too short. Maybe it's the trousers that you always have to belt in order for them to work for you. Maybe it's the top that is ever so slightly too short. Maybe it's the blouse that is perfect in every sense, but the fabrication. If you have to make a compromise to make it work for you, I think eventually it's going to end up being something that you regret or that you don't love as much as the other items in your wardrobe. And I feel like it's just an area where it's worth giving it a pass. The last question to ask yourself is, does this reflect my personal essence? And I think that this is one of those things that is seldom talked about, but I think it does actually play a role in whether you love and wear a piece a lot. And I did touch on this briefly in my last video about Tibi body types, but for someone like me, I have a lot of really angular, sharp features. So a really prominent jawline. I have quite kind of sharp clavicles, shoulders. And I've noticed over the years that clothing that is very kind of soft, it feels very romantic, always feels unaligned with my features, and I notice this immediately, and I'm always least happy whenever I go to wear those items. So when I'm wearing the sharper, more angular items in my closet, things that do have a little bit more structure to them, I feel a lot more like myself. And while this isn't true of everything, it does allow me to reflect on the things that are going to be a mistake purchase for me versus the ones that are likely to be a win. So keeping an eye out for those more geometric shapes and avoiding fabrics that are very kind of soft and that are going to drape in a specific way against the body. Obviously, personal preference plays a real role here, but I do think it's one to kind of have in the back of your mind because these can really inform your decisions when you are adding new pieces to your wardrobe. So those are the questions to ask yourself when you're buying something new, which I hope will stop you from making any regretful purchases in 2025. Thank you so much for joining me today, and don't forget you can use my code Mademoiselle Gem to save a little bit more off your Linjer purchase. I will have all those details down in the description box below. If you're new here and would like to subscribe, I'd love to have you back. I share lots of styling advice, ways to wear things in your wardrobe, and also brand reviews. But I will see you next week with a brand new video. See you soon. Bye.